Good morning, y'all. It's your girl Diamond, host of What's News Delco, joined by,
Lee with the T.
and we have a very special episode today. It's been a while since we've been behind the mics, but it feels good to be back. And we are here at Cheyney University on this beautiful Saturday morning to cover a great event that the Delaware County Black Caucus is hosting. So we are joined by William Felder, who is one of the conveners of the Black Caucus. So could you just tell us a little bit more about what's going on today, why this event is so special for the community?
Well, today we here at Cheyney, we had our fourth symposium here at the university, and our topic today is gun violent prevention. We see the need to have this particular topic of discussion because there's not a lot of talk going on about it around the country. There's a lot of things that's highlighted and taking place because of gun violence, and we're basically trying to bring a conversation to the table so that we as a caucus can reach our communities to let them know how preventive measures can be restored and we can go back to living a life of peace. Too long and too often, violence has overcome our communities. Has been different variables that took place as the years went along, from drug prohibition, alcohol, you name it. Each era has presented itself with different variables that our communities have faced and was basically confronted with decline. Gun violence is the new thing. Not that it is a new idiom, but it's a new focus. And we need to find ways to deal with it. It's very important that we do because our communities are at war or under the auspices of war. When you bring in guns and it's an everyday idiom or instrument in the lifestyle of our people, and it take away the ability to find peace at home. It places fear in people's lives. It disrupts the social fabric by which we all try to live. It's just a curse on us right now, and we need to talk. We all need to talk. There's no blame. We just need conversation and solutions.
Awesome. Completely agree with that. Gun violence has been on the rise for a long time, and what makes it so concerning is that it's mainly taken a hold of our youth. And there are youth that are losing their lives. And just thinking of this conversation right now, someone that comes to mind, of course, is Fontability, and even Kyle Lohman, who actually didn't get as much coverage for his story, but he was only 14 years old and shot over 20 times to death in Darby. So there's really a lot that's going on around the county, and I'm just wishing that their stories just aren't just completely disregarded, especially when we look at Delaware County and we compare it to Philadelphia and we say, oh, we're not that bad. Yeah, we actually are. We're getting there. Kids are still getting access to guns, and I know, Melita, you can speak more on what happened just recently at William Penn School District. It's a lot.
Even like in this last year, the William Penn School District, there's been several shootings. Like you mentioned, Kyle Lohman, who unfortunately was shot and killed by a schoolmate. So they both were students at Penwood High School. And that was really tragic. We had students that were shot in June at a basketball game in Yaden. And as recent as last Friday, there was a shooting outside of Penwood High School, and it was a student-involved shooting. Several students, unfortunately, have now been arrested. One, a 17-year-old, is being charged as an adult who's currently in George W. Hill Correctional Facility because his bail is $250,000. So there's been a huge increase in gun violence amongst the youth in Delaware County. I know a lot of people tend to think it's like a big city issue. So like we're talking about Philadelphia things or even the city of Chester. But no, it's everywhere that Black and brown youth are right now. and it doesn't seem to be getting better. We're not having enough conversations about it. There are kids that are not even buying guns anymore. They're creating ghost guns. They're using 3D printers. They are making it so that you can like fire like rapidly with these ghost guns. So they're modifying weapons and creating weapons, and I don't even know where we can even start to begin to find a solution to the problem. There's so many different things that contribute to the increase in violence, including, you know, job insecurity, food insecurity, being in impoverished communities, lack of mental health resources. There's so many layers to the problem, and we haven't even begun to scratch the surface.
100%. There's a lot that we need to do and bring to the county. It's just definitely going to take some time. It's not an overnight process. And like you said, it could be hard trying to figure out where to start, and mainly because a lot of resources that we see in other areas in PA or even other counties, other cities, Delaware County does not have. So we're already starting at ground one and just trying to build up from there. But it's a lot. So we do appreciate you guys for hosting events like this and even conversations, because it is needed. And especially for communities that are constantly harmed and just overlooked, we never really know what's going on unless we bring those people together to see. So what are some of the goals that the caucus is looking for after today's event?
Well, we have been doing community forums, and we had one in Darby not too long ago that actually dealt with gun violence. So we're going to continue our mission to inform and educate the community to improve the overall life of the African American community and its residents. But it's a struggle. We need people to participate, to come out and help us help them. If they come out and become an ear to listen to new ideas, because the old ones don't work, and we don't have the answers. The answers is in a collective thought that we all need to resolve and sit down and actually get these things done together. Mm-hmm. Over the years, it's always been pointing fingers. It's the parent that the finger was pointing at, the politician, the school, the church. But these things are only variables or ingredients that make a community. Mm-hmm. And we must use their vast resources, because there's something there in our human makeup that we cater to these things for societal function. And if we eliminate any of it or isolate any of it, it don't make a whole. And you can have three entities come together, but if you blame the parent, that's a very major source that needs to be connected to. If you blame the church, another thing, that is a major source that need to be collected to. If you blame the politician, you can't. That's a major source that needs to have a connection to, because each of them play a strategic part in the development of our lifestyles, our communities, on how they progress or fail. And we need to get in all of these major institutions and bring them back to vitality, make them work. We are the people. We need to make them all work in our favor so that we can know, as is promised in the Constitution of this country, we all deserve life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Absolutely. So, Will, we want to thank you so much for sitting down with us. Thank you for being a part of the Black Caucus, for being a community leader, and for all the work that you do with helping people to live a better quality of life. It truly makes a difference out here in Delaware County. And we have our next guest, Mr. Myron McNeely, coming to the microphone. Myron, if you could come sit down.
All right, thank you, Will.
Thank you all.
Good morning, Myron.
Good morning. Good morning. How are y'all doing this morning?
Good.
I'm glad to hear that.
Well, thank you for joining us. pretty sure you just tuned in to the majority of that conversation. So don't want to ask you repeated questions. But I will say, while Will was talking about a major things that contribute to why gun violence is a major issue right now, just not in Delaware County, but in general, mention, of course, the churches, the households, the parents, but I think we should also address the schools because the school to prison pipeline, that's been brewing for decades. And we're seeing it happen more throughout Southeast Delco, William Penn School District, even Upper Darby School District. So I wanted to ask, do you have like any thoughts on that or any focuses or priorities on as far as solutions or programs that we could bring to schools or communities to reduce that?
Well, I do know that in a lot of the school districts throughout, I'd say the state of Pennsylvania, they have the tendency to try to criminalize young children. If you hit someone in the playground, that's assault and battery and stuff like that. So those type of things I think need to be cut out because all you're doing is creating a record to try to show that someone was bad from the day they started school, you know. So and we must take, and our young youth really needs our attention, and that's on every level. You know, it starts at home, and just like I always told my kids' teachers, my kids are in school longer than with you, longer than they're at home with me. So, you know, I want them to respect their teachers. I got to respect their teachers because I got to respect what they're doing for my children. And that's where it starts. A lot of people in this day and time, when it comes to their kids, they lose focus. It takes a village.
Yes.
It takes a village. And they lose focus on the fact that this teacher need to be able to discipline your child if that's what they got to do to get them to pay attention in class or have some way to discipline them. But then they also, in the same token, they must be disciplined at home. See, a lot of this stuff goes back to discipline, respect, you know, and that goes on both ends. I mean, you have to respect children. They're human too, you know. But as adults, we have to be willing to respect them, also raise them, you know. I can have kids and I can let them do what they want. That's not meaning I'm raising them, you know, because I go out and buy them a pair of shoes and a pair of pants and give them something to eat, you know. They have to listen to me. They have to know that they have someone to answer to when they step out of line. And that's everywhere they go. That's at home. That's in the schools. You know, when I was a kid, if anyone in the neighborhood said, I saw your son around the corner doing so-and-so, my mother, you would not come to her and say, no, I wasn't, because now you're calling an adult a liar. And now, at that point, you got a whipping just for that. You understand what I'm saying? But then in the same token, we had people in the community that would discipline us and take us home to our parents. And they didn't have to fight our parents because our parents would thank them because they know once we turn the corner, they don't know what we do. You know, my mother always said that. When you turn that corner, I don't know what you do around that corner. You know, but that goes on every level. So, but it has to start at home, and also it has to start in the schools. We have to have teachers that are willing to do what they have to do to educate our children. But we have to make sure that they are in the position to accept the education that they're getting.
And it definitely does take a village to raise a child. And that's the one thing a lot of our children are missing today. There is no more village. And I get it. A lot of people are working 2 to 3 jobs just to get by and things of that nature. But also, there's an African proverb that says that a child that is not embraced by the village will burn it to the ground just to feel its warmth. And I feel like that's what we're seeing. There's a lack of nurturing with our children. There's a lack of structure. There's a lot of kids are lacking a lot of things, a lot of love. And as a result, we see an increase in the violence. No one's talking to them. No one's embracing them. No one's stepping to them when they do things they shouldn't do, and just talking to them on a basic human level. A lot of adults talk down to our children. They expect to receive respect just because they're an adult. That's not how it works. You have to really talk to them on their level and build a relationship with them, and then that's when you get the respect. That's when you start to see the changes in behavior. I know in the William Penn School District, we do have a lot of people that do care about the children. They're the ones that still showing up, the coaches, the administrators, the teachers that come back year after year, because we know none of them get paid enough. Even the school safety officers have good rapport with these children. So we do appreciate the ones that are stepping up, that are showing up for the children, but we need more people. We need more adults in the community to step up. And I know we're all busy, we all have things to do, but we got to make time or our kids are going to continue to drown. They are drowning and no one is throwing them a life preserver. Sorry. But thank you so much, Myron, for sitting down with us today. We truly appreciate it. Thank you for all the work that you do in the community. We always see you out and about at different events. So we know
the best suits on.
right, Sunday sharp. And but you know, you show up, and showing up is half the battle.
I agree. Thank you so much. I appreciate y'all for doing this, and on the behalf of the Delaware County Black Caucus. And it's very, you know, it's all about being informative, you know. But and we really got to get the message out, and we got to try to develop a new village and a new type of village, you know.
Yes.
But nevertheless, it's needed. The village is
100%.
needed, you know.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Y'all have a good day. Thank you so much.
Could you find Mama Joyce for us? She's supposed to interview too. Mama Joyce. Thank you. Up next, we have Dr. Hakeem Stovall sitting down with us.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. How's everything going?
Good. If you could just introduce yourself, tell us who you are, who you represent today.
Sure. My name is Dr. Hakeem Stovall. I am a postdoctoral fellow at the Johns Hopkins School of Public Health, Bloomberg School of Public Health, and I am with the Center for Gun Violence Solutions.
Awesome. Well, could you tell us more about the Center of Gun Violence Solutions and what you guys do?
Sure. Well, the Center for Gun Violence Solution actually started off as the Center for Gun Violence Prevention, which during the height of COVID, they merged with a nonprofit within the city of Baltimore that focused on public health related events that stem from gun violence. And so by the participation of the impact that that particular nonprofit had, they merged with Johns Hopkins Center. Initially, it was the Hopkins Center for Gun Violence Prevention. And then they started to turn into the Center for Gun Violence Solutions, focusing on different levels of impact as it relates to gun violence and how it affects various communities, specifically communities of color.
Well, thank you for sharing that, and also just thank you for all the work that you're doing. It's very much needed.
Appreciate
So when
it.
we talk about gun violence prevention, of course there are many solutions and strategies that we're trying to bring about as a community to implement, whether it's gun violence reduction or just completely gun violence prevention. So obviously it would be great to start with a reduced level of gun violence rate. It'll be very difficult to just dismantle it altogether, but are there any solutions or strategies that you would announce to communities to just start with at a base level and then
Sure.
eventually build that momentum to continue to expand into something greater?
I think one of the things that we need to realize is that the impact that has been placed on various communities of color have stemmed specifically from the impact of COVID and how COVID has created what's called a syndemic. And when we talk about what a syndemic is basically so many different factors when you think about the insurrection with Trump, and when you think about the impact that COVID has had, and also when you think about the social impact that the George Floyd incident has had. There are a myriad of complex issues that have created a sense of mistrust for the public. When we think about mistrust for the public, individuals want to defend what's theirs. And so what we've witnessed over the past couple of years is the purchase of firearms for protection of property. But now, because of the isolation due to COVID, now our communities have been tremendously influenced by social media and what types of content is put on social media and how it reflects towards ideology of how things are with, I guess, content-wise with beefing and so forth. So to answer your question, we have to look at the clear picture of how it started, and then also come up with factors to mitigate on a small base, and then work ourselves up. And one of the solutions that we're primarily focusing on is advocacy on extreme risk protection orders, or ERPO. And because ERPO has a potential focus on identifying the rate of domestic violence in the home, and how gun violence impacts domestic violence, and also suicide rates, we're trying to advocate on a local, state, and federal level to implement policy. That's the first thing. Secondly, there are the idealization or the philosophy of implementation of community violence intervention programs. Community violence intervention programs within this county, and particularly there are partnerships through, for example, Crozier Health. Crozier Health has partnerships with 2 different nonprofit organizations, whereas you have other hospitals, and particularly which could, Children's Hospital, so to speak. Children's Hospital has a Center for Violence Intervention and Prevention. By following that particular model and having those particular trauma and therapeutic services that are supportive for our communities, needs to be replicated, so to speak. And so we have a lot of hospitals that are in the area that don't provide those particular level of services. But if we incorporate that, that can help mitigate the process. Also, being able to have counterparts in the community to be a vocal and also implementive part of, or instrumental part of, the process of gun violence prevention. I think that we as a society are lost in translation when we think about traditional values versus the new shift of how social media has had an impact on our younger generation. And so by building a relationship where we can all be within the same level of translation can allow us to be able to provide solutions towards the community.
That was awesome. That's actually really good to know. And I'm hoping that as a community, we can begin to implement those things, especially around the medical field, like you were mentioning with the hospitals.
Sure.
We unfortunately did have hospitals that closed down in the county specifically over the past couple of years, but with the ones that are still standing, that would be very important to have 100%.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing. It's very, very important. It's so funny is we met randomly, like over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So the fact that we're even sitting down here today and we're interviewing you was just mind blowing. But we truly appreciate you and all of your work and your dedication. And I'm just hoping and praying that it helps change things because there's way too much going on.
Well, this is my passion. This is what I sought out as a professional law enforcement professional. I started off in corrections, working in the medical examiner's office for over 10 years, working in the field of investigations for over 10 years, and in juvenile corrections, just understanding the scope and study helps me to become more passionate about my community and just trying to come up with different solutions and bridging the gap, so to speak.
Well, thank you so much, and
thank
we definitely look forward to hearing you speak more on the panel today, hearing your thoughts and ideas, and just hearing more about the work that you're doing. So again, this is Dr. Hakeem Stovall with us today on What's News Delco, and we look forward to following your work.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Could you send the president our way? And then we'll wrap with Mama Joyce. Good morning. Good morning. So you guys are in for a special guest. So today we have here with us the president of Cheyney University. Could you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Absolutely. My name is Aaron A. Walton. I'm the 13th president of Cheyney University, and I came here in 2017 after a 40-year career in corporate America.
Wow.
You know, I was a turnaround specialist in corporate, and whenever I was asked by the Board of Governors to come to Cheyney in 2017, it was to use the expertise that I had gained in the corporate world to bring it to Cheyney, because I see education as a business. So we brought in a business model, and we haven't looked back, because we're in a transformational time in terms of education and what it means and the significance of education. But we've got to approach it differently than we have in the past.
Right.
We've got to look at what are the occupations of the current and the future and begin to prepare our young people for those. Not just a traditional education, but in areas where black and brown people have been underrepresented. So our focus has been in the STEM arena the last several years. We've gone from 8% STEM enrollment to 28% in the last 5 years. It's intentional.
Yeah.
Not that we want everyone to be a scientist, but we have to expose our students to things other than some of the traditional occupations they've been exposed to.
100%.
Absolutely.
So we're moving into the 21st century and saying we've got to be prepared for everything. I came up in a time when there were very few opportunities for us, particularly when I went into corporate in the early 70s. And it was similar to this time. We'd gone through the riots and the window of opportunity opened for a while. And I said, you know what? We better take advantage of the window of opportunity opening because it will close.
Right.
Similar to the murder of George Floyd, the window of opportunity opened. It's not going to stay open forever. So what we've got to do is we've got to take full advantage of the moment
Absolutely.
because people have short memories.
Yes.
And as soon as the memory begins to fade, the old behaviors begin to reappear. So we've got to make sure that we don't let them disappear. So we've got a tremendous obligation. Today is very, very important because
Yes.
we've got to stay focused on our social mission. And I'll be talking about that when I make my remarks in terms of we have an obligation. And we've got an obligation to pay it forward. Because if it hadn't been for those individuals that paved the way for us, we wouldn't be here today.
Right.
So we've got to plant trees under which we will not enjoy the shade. And that's okay, because so did they. And we're enjoying some shade.
Yes.
So we've got to
Absolutely.
keep planting those trees so that there is a future for my grandchildren and my grandchildren's children to enjoy this when we're long gone. But if we don't set this stage, if we're not intentional right now, it's not going to happen. So
Absolutely.
we got to be comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Yes.
And the more uncomfortable we are, the more progress we can make. But when we fall into that comfort zone, we're done.
Yep.
So I don't want folks to be comfortable. So my job here is to be disruptive.
Yes.
I've done that
Absolutely.
for 6.5 years.
Oh, I love that.
As activists,
That's-
we appreciate that.
and,
Absolutely.
that's scriptural because everything in the Bible was disruptive. Wasn't no peaceful, let's get along. If you don't disrupt and disturb things from the bottom up, they don't change. It's the old significant thing. If there's not a significant emotional experience, there is no change. So
Absolutely.
we're trying to create significant emotional experiences so that there is change. And sometimes you have to infuse that change. You have to force it.
Yeah.
Because it's not
Yeah.
it's not natural. But I don't have a problem with that. Because I say all the time, I'm not in
love
charge
it.
of happiness.
Yes,
I'm in
well-
charge of change.
Yeah.
Yes,
We're all
well,
about the
thank
impact.
you.
Oh,
Thank you so
We don't have
much.
impact. We don't have anything.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you so,
thank
much
you
for your
being here
work.
this morning. This is
thank
wonderful.
Yeah,
All
thank
right. Have
you.
a blessed day.
You
You
too.
too.
Thank you.
Wow, I'm so moved already.
Hey,
I
I
am
love
moved.
him. I'm happy he
I
is
know.
here. Oh my goodness.
I love it.
And our last guest today is a very special guest and someone who I love very much. We have Miss Joyce Lambert here with us today, who I call Mama Joyce. So could you just introduce yourself, tell us who you are, where you're from?
Okay. Well, I am Joyce Lambert. I'm from Alden, Pennsylvania, and I'm a member of the Delaware County Black Caucus, and I also am the vice president of the Alden Council Borough, and I'm here today because this is important to me.
So can you tell us a little bit about why this symposium on gun violence prevention is important to you and how gun violence has affected you personally?
Yes. It's important to me, the symposium that we have, because it brings people together to hear different perspectives on different subjects. This year's subject is dear to me because our family has recently experienced a death of my grandson due to gun violence. He was 20 years old, thank you. And so even before that, just being a part of knowing that there's something else that we can do, something we should do, something we need to do. And so being here today to be able to hear who we have invited to speak and who to share information, hopefully it can shed some additional light on some different ways that we can make a difference. And that's something that I always want to do. I always want to try my best to make a difference. I always want to try to leave a person, a place, or a situation better than when I came. That's my goal.
Absolutely. And I know personally that you have been someone that has been a part of the village for so many, including myself. And we're just hoping that we can get more people to become villages for children in their neighborhoods, in their school districts. I don't know if you're aware, but we had a shooting last Friday at Penwood High School. And they now have apprehended all 3 students who were behind the shooting. There was altercation between 2 groups. It was nothing but the grace of God that no one was killed. Because it was right after dismissal. I would have been out there myself if my son hadn't been homesick that day. And there's just so much going on, and we're just trying to get more people involved. We have meetings, people don't show up. We have all types of volunteer opportunities. No one's volunteering, and there's no village right now for our children. And that's a huge part of the problem. But as someone who is an elected official, are there any talks from an official standpoint on how to reduce the violence that's happening, because it's trending upwards in Delaware County, especially in certain school districts?
Ironically, we just hired a new police chief in Alden.
Okay.
And so with that, some of the conversations that we've been having are, and some of the ways that he spoke with us about more community involvement to get people involved before this impacts their families. And there's someone maybe, if it's not directly a direct impact, you may have a neighbor, a friend, a relative, or even, like you said, on the news, or someone in school. So the idea is to have the community, and they say children, but it's not all children that are doing this. So to make that a part of the awareness that it's adults and it's young people, but what is it that we think that no one gets up in the morning and says, I want to go kill someone. And maybe someone does, but what happens to you during your day or in your life that you think this is the way to resolve an issue? Because it's not a resolution.
Right.
So that's the main thing. It's not a resolution. because it impacts the shooter, it impacts the family, it impacts the shooter's family.
On a long-term basis at that.
Yeah, so it's not one and done. And as you said, an elected official, that's a part. One of the committees that I chair is the Public Safety Committee. So with that, when the new police chief was being interviewed, some of the questions that we asked were about we haven't had the violence, but all around us. You know, I give the monthly police report, so I see the change in the type of things that are happening, and to look and be able to see, you know, what can we do. We see this for this month, but months going forward, what can we do? What should we do? You know, and what will we do?
Right.
Yeah, it's a lot. Moving forward, how do you feel that we can kind of re-engage community members? Like, I mean, I've talked to people on the streets. I run into parents in the store or whatever, and I talk to them, try to get them to come out to different things. But it's been slow. Yeah. So how do we engage adults, especially, you know, the older generation that are like our parents? They're kind of just like, well, it's kind of not my problem anymore. My kids are grown, but they're still in the community.
Yeah, but I guess just what you said as far as the awareness, it is our problem. My children are grown, but I have grandchildren, you know, and my grandchildren have friends. And so I never want to think of anything that's not my problem. I may not be able to have the resolution, but I should be able to be aware enough to know that I want to help however I can, or to make someone else, like if I'm sitting next to you and I know that you've been impacted, I'm not just going to sit like, oh, well, you know, that's not me. It's like, okay, what can I, Diamond? Yes. So that I met Diamond today, and there's a situation happening with her. If nothing else, I can pray. I mean, the least I can do is pray. But greater than that, we say that we have prayer, but prayer is wonderful. But aside from prayer, in addition to prayer, how can we communicate so that maybe there are resources available that you may not be aware of, or that someone else may not be aware of, that can help, you know? And to be able to access of the guns, how is that happening? We know it's not all local, you know, to shine a light on that there's access that to these guns that we don't control.
And I'm so glad that you mentioned that, especially about prayer, because I am a preacher's daughter. And growing up in a black church, what you typically hear is just pray about it, leave it in God's hands, and he'll handle it. But sometimes God will actually throw you into certain situations where you can actually be an impact to other people. So I'm really grateful for all the work that you're doing. And like Melita talked about earlier, she's always boots on the ground, trying to do a lot of work around the William Penn School District, and I myself am always out in the streets trying to do something.
Oh, good.
So it truly does take a village to bring our communities together so that we can flourish together. We don't want to see our youth wiped out before, you know, they get older. And I'm only 25 myself, and I'm grateful every day that I even made it this far, because I've seen people much younger than me who have their life just violently taken, and it shouldn't be that way. And with the rates and how it's growing in Delaware County, we're entering a major crisis, and we need to focus on the what now before those rates continue to increase, and we're like, now what do we do? We shouldn't wait until it gets to that point.
And to think of it that it's tragic and a tragedy. You know, to have anyone, like the one thing we were talking about the other day is the funeral homes are not losing any business.
Not at all.
You know, they're not losing any business. And even with that industry, some of them are having to do the work because the families can't even afford it because they're in shock. They have no money. Their child left home and never returned. You know, so even how it affects the whole spectrum of those involved. So that's I just think communication. I always think communication. You know, like people get upset about things and hold a grudge for a long time. but if we're communicating, at least we know the foundation of what happened, you know, so.
100%. I thank you so much for sharing all that.
You're welcome.
And just another thing I wanted to touch on, because my heart has been so heavy since that day. On Thursday, there was a Southeast Delco school board meeting, and there were students that came up and spoke during public comment, and they talked about how pretty much they're still being impacted on a long-term basis about the death of Fontability that took place after a football game. And this was coming directly from football players who are now seniors. And they're saying that ever since that incident happened, nothing has been the same amongst the team, amongst the school district, and that they just genuinely feel like the community just has disinvested in them because now they're just publicly narrated as a very violent and dangerous area. And they're now just losing out on resources, and it shouldn't be that way, because if our kids are now coming up stating that, obviously it's going to continue to grow into an issue, and if we completely and continue to disinvest, then we're going to see another life taken at that school, or we're going to constantly see other kids just pull back completely from the education system because they're not getting anything out of it. So ever since then, I've just been thinking about, well, what can we do now? So after having this conversation, my mind is still like, we have so many different options that we can take, and just hoping that something will work, at least for right now.
Yeah, and the fact that they're opening up, you know, because when you hold it, that's when things start to, and that can lead to depression. It can lead to, you know, where they just don't feel, which is a part of depression, where they just don't feel like, why do I need to do this?
Right.
So we want to have, we want to give a hope. We want them to be able to know that, yes, this happened, but we're here to at least listen to you and to see what it is that you would have us to help you with. Yeah.
So thank you so much for
You're
your
welcome.
kind
It
and
was great
wise
talking with
words.
you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me.
So the symposium is getting ready to start, so we are going to end our live broadcast, but make sure you're following What's News Delco on Facebook and Instagram, because we'll be posting some footage throughout today's events. After this show, we will be taking a short fall break, so you guys will see us going back live for shows at the beginning of 2024. So we'll see y'all in January. But we are still available for events. So if you have an event going on in Delaware County or the surrounding areas between now and January, and you want us to cover your show, attend your events, get some footage for you guys, reach out to us, and we'll be happy to show up. So I am Lee with the T, and this is my co-host.
Diamond.
And we are What's News Delco. Stay safe, you guys.
Bye, guys.